Oh boy. So to be clear, I don't have to replace all these parts again. The issue I'm having at the moment just has to do with this gear here. And basically the reason being is because this gear here, which drives the crank off the crankshaft, is spinning independently of this gear here. Now it's very hard to turn, but you can see in between the teeth, you know, how shiny the background is, and that's because it's spinning. And what this causes is when the ECU doesn't see a crank signal when you hit the starter button within, say, a half a second, the ECU actually takes the start signal away. So that issue I actually found out when I put the one-way clutch in. So this is the drum for the one-way clutch, and this is the actual sprag or one-way clutch assembly. So you can put this in backwards. It's symmetrical on either side. Obviously it's marked on this side, and at the time I didn't have the manual. I don't know if you can see it, but a lot of the teeth on this sprag are just destroyed. Like that one there is flat. So the one next to it is flat as well. You know, they're all messed up pretty bad. And in turn, this rides on this material here, and this is directly bolted to the crank. So basically you have it like this, and then the drum goes over top of it, and the drum is what actually connects to the crankshaft, and this obviously does not. So this gear goes to one of the gears that come off of this cog right here. So basically when I replaced everything, I accidentally put the sprag in backwards. And what happened was the starter would just go, you know, like it wasn't contacting the motor, like I left one of the gears out. And that's because the one-way clutch was backwards. So luckily I had that experience, and I pretty much knew it was wrong almost right away that I had put it in backwards. And I didn't put too much thought into why the starter didn't just continuously spin. But I remembered that, and I didn't remember it good enough. This thing drove me nuts. You know, being that I've had all these starter issues before, you know, it's very unfortunate. You know, the bike when I bought it had, I think, 190 miles, and I rode it home, which was almost another 200 miles, and got it tagged and all that stuff. And then first day that I took it out and rode it, about 2 hours out into the woods, you know, me and Zach are riding around, and you know, the starter starts sounding kind of funny, you know, but it keeps starting, you know, and I just kept going. You know, I was so excited to have the bike. You know, I've been thinking about the 450L the whole time I had the rally, basically. And what was actually happening with the whole starting system was a combination of a failing one-way clutch and a failing gear. So in the original instance, the starter would start to crank the engine, and when it would come up on the compression stroke, either the one-way clutch or the gear, one or the other, would slip, and then it would grab on the combustion stroke, and it would kick so hard it would pretty much lock the motor, you know, and just stop the starter dead. And, you know, unfortunately, it happened that way. You know, basically the first 2 hours I was riding the bike, it went from being perfectly fine to being, you know, just a mess almost immediately. And you can see that these gears are just, you know, they just tore themselves to pieces. You know, unfortunately, that's the way it went down, but, you know, it is what it is. I just honestly want to rectify the situation. And if there's anybody out there that's had this issue before, you know, reach out, you know, at least throw a quick comment in so we have an idea of how many people are actually having these issues. Because this gear, a year ago when I ordered all these parts, was not in stock at Rocky Mountain ATV. And since then, they keep a full stock of these gears, and the price has doubled. So it tells me that there's a lot of other people having this problem. Because otherwise, Rocky Mountain would not stock, you know, a $70, $80, $90, $100 gear. Yeah, I may be wrong on the pricing on it. I know right now, I just ordered one earlier. They had 6 in stock in Utah, 6 in stock in Kentucky. So they obviously know there's an issue, and, you know, obviously they're going to capitalize on it, which is awesome for me because I can get the part in 3 days. But, you know, basically these 2 gears get chewed up pretty bad. I just went ahead and ordered everything because I wasn't sure what I was going to get into. I wish I would have ordered this as well, but like I said, I just bought the bike, and pretty much what you see here, you know, and this, and engine gasket kit, you know, and a few other little odds and ends pieces, set me back $1,000. It was actually a little more than 1,000, but it's regardless, doesn't matter. The point is, I just would like to, you know, try and gauge how many people out there are having this problem. I've had a couple people with 2019s, which I believed were probably all early models, that were having this issue. But as time went on, I get messages with people with 2020s. And then, you know, I get a few messages about 2021s. And last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, right before I had this issue, I had a message from a guy with a 2022. I think he said 120 miles, if I'm not mistaken. Intermediate gear went out, chewed everything up. I really just, you know, would like to get this situation taken care of once and for all. And the more feedback we get, you know, the better chance we're going to have, you know, a good answer, especially if we get somebody from Honda or, you know, some dealership guys talking in a, you know, discussion about this. Because, like I said, I didn't replace this initially. So at 450 miles, I replaced everything here, plus the guides and some other unrelated things. And just in between 450 miles and 700 miles, I started having issues again. And it actually damaged the current starter that's in the bike that I ended up paying $360 for through my local dealer. And it chipped one of the teeth off. And I can see some abnormal wear on this gear. Now those 2 parts are both still on the bike. They've been damaged since I put this in at 700. It now has 1500, and I don't see any abnormal wear on either part anymore since I replaced this. So this was the main culprit, along with this gear slipping, because both of these gears, this is the new one, this is the old one. Obviously this one failed between 450 and 1500 miles, and I attempted to weld it this morning, but I ended up burning the edge off, and I was like, oh well, screw it. You know, I'm not a professional welder, and my eyes are starting to go. So I couldn't, you know, I don't know. I didn't do a very good job. But either way, I had a feeling I was going to be ordering a new one anyway. But long story short, you know, I just like to get some of you guys' input. You know, I've got the bike completely torn apart here in my basement. And as you can see, it's just, you know, I've got a lot of other stuff that I'm doing to it, but it's all, yeah, back to square one, unfortunately. You know, this is where all the parts reside. Basically those gears, there's the big one. The one that failed is in the top hole, and this is basically a secondary gear right here that goes right there, and it drives these gears here and also the one-way clutch, which it will only spin counterclockwise. If it spins clockwise, that means the starter is running and it's cranking the engine over. So basically, I'm gonna wait till next Wednesday to get the part. I'm gonna get the motor back together, and hopefully it'll rectify my situation. I kind of want to go ahead and get a new starter again and get that first intermediate gear again, just so I have, you know, a fresh gear set. You know, everything can wear in together. Unfortunately, that's another 360 plus tax, so probably like 375, 380. And then that intermediate gear, I do believe, is like, probably will, unfortunately. You know, I don't believe that my local dealer is going to warranty a starter for a chipped tooth or an irregular wearing gear. I seriously doubt it. So I just want to make this right, and I don't like, you know, the idea of not being able to rely on the bike. I love the bike. I love the way it rides. You know, I have no complaints. Like, everybody whines about the flame out, and, you know, it's too heavy, and I'm a 40-year-old smoker, okay? I'm way overweight. I'm like 200 and some pounds. You know, I stand around all day at my job. When I come home, I'm usually so tired from standing that I don't really get much done. You know, I mean, I get on the bike on the weekends and I have fun. You know, am I a professional? Absolutely not. You know, I just go out there and have fun. You know, I know that the bike can do 100 times what I can do with a capable rider. You know, and I just, you know, go out there and fling it around and see what happens. You know, it's just all for fun, you know, at this point. But if I can't rely on the bike, you know, I'm not going to want to go, say, to Hatfield McCoy, you know, where I can ride 100 miles in a day and end up getting, you know, 35 miles back in the mountains away from something, my truck or whatever, and have this happen. It's not of any interest to me. So, long story short, like I said, if you're still listening to this, you know, try and give some input. You know, I'm not trying to, you know, down the bike, you know, or make people afraid to buy it or anything like that. I do believe it's a pretty small percentage of owners who are having this issue. I don't pretend that it's going to happen to everybody. But at the same point in time, you know, I'd like to at least give the people out there who are experiencing this problem an outlet to having kind of a quick fix guide, you know, because this really sucks. You know, shout out to the guy in Sweden with the 2019 CRF450X who initially had this problem where just the gear is slipping. And basically your starter just turns for a half a second and stops. And you have to wait for the ECU to reset, and then it'll do it again, until eventually that gear grips up and the bike starts, you know. When I was doing all the electrical tests, I jumped the starter relay itself. Bike started right up with the button. I jumped the starter solenoid. You know, they call it a starter solenoid switch. I jumped that, you know, not across the large terminals, but from the coil windings of the relay, and the bike started fine. Now, when it first cranked, it sounded a little funny for like the first half second, but that friction of spinning over, you know, the gear grows and grabs and bike starts right up. Yeah, I probably could have just, you know, wired one of the starter relays a little different, and it would have started every time. But eventually it would have tore that gear apart, you know, spit metal through my motor, and I've already had enough of that. You know, I don't want this to happen again. So, again, I'm going to end it off there. I've got a ton of other stuff to do to the bike while I'm waiting for parts. I've got a tubeless system for the front. Probably going to keep the Pirelli tire, you know, so I like that on the front, and I got the D606 on the rear, and you know, I've been looking at them, and they got 1,500 miles on them, and the tires they're in great shape, you know, for 1,500 miles. I mean, I ride as much dirt as possible. I only ride the road enough to get to the trail. I might ride it to work every once in a while, but basically, you know, I'd like to have this be a little bit more of a reliable bike and not have to replace these parts once a year, because, you know, that's not a sane thing to do, you know. But at the same point in time, what do you do? Fix it, sell it, give it to somebody else and have it be their problem? You know, I'd rather fix the problem, enjoy the bike. It's paid for, you know, I bought it because I really wanted it, you know, and I've made it the way that I want it. I'd really like to get this bike going. You know, this is my primary, and my rally has become the secondary, and I love riding the rally. But I've really cleaned that up parts wise, you know, and I was kind of hoping it would be a secondary for somebody else, but you know, it looks like I'm going to be riding that for a little while. Hopefully all the parts come pretty quickly for this. But, you know, if you guys start noticing weird cranking issues where the engine speed doesn't sound the same, like it's slowing down or speeding up, don't delay. Order yourself a one-way clutch and this gear minimum. It seems like the one-way clutch starts to fail, and then the kickback actually breaks this gear free. I almost look at this gear kind of like a fuse for this system. Say the motor locks up, or you know, something weird happens, this will break before this will, because one thing I've heard that happens on some of these bikes is when the motor binds up while cranking, depending on whether it's on the power stroke or not, you can actually bind it so bad that you'll crack the engine case, and the case will crack somewhere in between here and here, all the way up to the top. And I don't know if anybody, you know, has ever done, you know, a one side engine case, but you got to tear the entire engine apart, and at that point you might as well rebuild it if it's got, you know, any amount of miles on it. I mean, you're going to be taking the jug off, piston out, splitting the crankcases, you know, it's a lot of work, and I really don't think anybody wants to deal with that. So if you start hearing any funny noises, you know, mainly irregular cranking speed with a good hot battery, it might be time to order a one-way clutch, you know, or take it into the shop and say, please replace it. Please replace the intermediate gear. I would do all three. Just the gears themselves really aren't too terribly expensive. I want to say probably about $400 just for the gears. Depending on how bad your one-way clutch is, you may not have to order all of it, but you know, just you know, keep an eye out. I don't want to make anybody paranoid or anything like that, but if you notice anything really noticeable, you know, take care of it sooner than later. You know, this bike has never met its 600-mile oil change. I've always ended up changing it early because of having problems. I mean, it's only got, I think, 1,563 miles. So, yeah, pretty much that's all I got. I'm gonna sit here and rant all night long. Good luck to everybody. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you like this, or if you want to follow this. Anyway, I appreciate it.